John thought he had it figured out, right up until his net worth crossed $750,000. It happened on a Tuesday morning in line for coffee, between a text message and a sip. His investment app refreshed, and the number stared back at him. $752.13 exactly. 23 years of maxed contributions, quiet raises, and boring index funds had finally added up. John smiled, put the phone away, and made a decision that felt completely harmless. He decided that he had finally earned the right to get a little creative with his money. 18 months later, John had lost $236,000 of it, and the market never crashed once. No recession, no layoff, no medical emergency, no divorce, and no dramatic headline to blame. Just 5 quiet decisions that felt smart in the moment and cost 6 figures in silence. Here's what nobody tells you about $750,000. It is the most dangerous number you will ever hold. Below that line, your biggest financial risk is simply not saving enough money each month. Above that line, your biggest risk becomes what you do next. And almost everyone does the same 5 things. This is the hidden math behind the moment your net worth finally hits $750,000. John eventually clawed every dollar back, but only after learning rules almost nobody bothers to teach. And those rules matter because $750,000 is where the physics of money quietly flip. The Federal Reserve says the median American household is worth about $110 to $900 all in. At $750,000, you are standing inside the top 15% of the entire country. You did everything right. Which is exactly why this particular moment is so dangerous. Danger doesn't arrive looking like risk. It arrives looking like a reward you have earned. It looks like a nicer car, a smarter sounding strategy, and a well-dressed professional handshake. One wrong money move at $40,000 costs you dinner money and a painful little lesson. The exact same wrong move at $750,000 costs you $250,000. Because at this level, mistakes don't subtract from your balance. They multiply against your future. Every dollar you lose today was already scheduled to become $4 by retirement. Lose $236,000 at 52, and the ledger says you didn't really lose $236,000. You lost the $944,000 that money was quietly on its way to becoming for you. Over the next few minutes, you will watch the 5 traps that catch almost everyone. You'll get exact dollar amounts, real studies, and the one move that protects absolutely everything. And you'll learn why doing nothing became the most profitable skill John ever mastered. Here's what the data shows. To understand what almost happened to John, you need to see exactly how he built it. John is 52, a program manager, earning $118,000 a year before taxes take their share. He is not a founder, not a house flipper, and not a genius stock picker. He started at 29 with $4,000 and a company match he very nearly ignored. His first $100,000 took 9 long years of grinding, saving, and quietly doubting himself. The second $100,000 arrived in barely 4 years without John working a single hour harder. And the climb from $500,000 all the way to $750,000 took just 31 months of autopilot. That acceleration isn't luck. It's the compounding curve bending upward, exactly on schedule. Run the numbers. At 7%, invested money doubles roughly every 10 years, all by itself. But the doubling that matters most is the one happening right now, at $750,000. The $750,213 breaks down like this. $498,000 sits inside his retirement accounts, untouchable and growing. Another $174,000 lives in a taxable brokerage account he opened during the 2020 lockdowns. The final $78,000 is home equity and cash, the boring, load-bearing kind of money. No inheritance, no lottery ticket, no lucky coin, just 276 straight months of contributions. Now meet the 3 people who watched John cross that line from up close. Carla is 32, works 2 desks over from John, and invests $1,500 every single month. Her entire portfolio sits in 3 boring index funds costing 0.04% a year. She checks her brokerage app exactly once a month on a Tuesday, coffee in hand. Last year, Carla's boring portfolio quietly out-earned her entire annual bonus at work. She will cross $750,000 5 years younger than John did, on the same salary band. Diana is 34, John's neighbor. Responsible, hardworking, and quietly drowning in tasteful upgrades. Her budget leaks $430 every month into payments she barely remembers ever actually choosing. That leak alone, invested instead, would be worth roughly $71,000 within 10 short years. Diana isn't reckless. She has simply never once run the numbers on her own life. And Maya is 28, John's niece, with $31,000 parked very safely in a savings account. She is terrified of losing a single dollar, which is quietly costing her a fortune. Her $31,000 earns 3.8% in savings while her rent inflation runs at 5%. SAFE, it turns out, has a price tag too. Now, it's just printed in invisible ink. 3 savers, 3 strategies, and 1 uncle crossing $750,000 in the coffee line. Same city, same decade, same access to the same index funds, different physics entirely. Each one believes their strategy is the safe one. And so, of course, did John. Because the day the number appeared on his screen, the phone calls started coming in. A financial advisor invited him to a complimentary portfolio review over a steak lunch. A salesman at the dealership remembered his name and remembered his lease was ending. An old friend texted him about a coin that was, quote, definitely going up. Even his dad weighed in. Get that money into something you can actually touch. None of these people were villains, and every single one of them was expensive. Here's the first thing $750,000 changes about your life. You become a customer worth hunting. Wealth doesn't just attract compound interest. It also attracts compound sales pitches. And the pitches always arrive precisely when you finally feel entitled to say yes. John said yes, 4 separate times in 18 months. Let's walk through every single dollar. Trap number 1 rolled into his driveway with heated seats and a very familiar grin. Before we open the 5 traps, you need the math that makes $750,000 a different animal. At a 7% average return, $750,000 grows by roughly $52,500 every single year. That is $144 a day, every day of the year, for doing absolutely nothing at all. Call it $43.75 a month, more than plenty of full-time paychecks in this country. Meanwhile, John's own yearly contributions totaled $24,000, even counting his generous employer match. Read that again slowly. The portfolio now out-earns the person who built it every year. For 23 years, John was the engine and the money was just the cargo. At $750,000, they switch seats. The money drives now and John rides along as cargo. On a perfectly normal, boring market day, prices wobble 1% in either direction. 1% of $750,000 is $7,500, swinging back and forth before your lunch break ends. Your portfolio now moves more in one single morning than you can contribute in a quarter. This is exactly why the rules flip here, and why your oldest instincts start betraying you. When you were the engine, action meant progress. Save more, hustle more, add more, always. Now that you're the cargo, most action just rocks the boat you're standing in. From here, $750,000 becomes $1,000 in about 4 years, with 0 new contributions. It becomes $1.5 million in roughly 10 years, still without a single new deposit from you. And in about 21 years, it quietly crosses $3 million entirely on autopilot. Unless, of course, you interrupt it, which is exactly what the 5 traps are built to do. Most people believe the interruption will look like a crash. It almost never does. It usually looks like John's own driveway on a bright Saturday morning in April. Trap number 2 is the upgrade trap, and here's what nobody tells you about feeling rich. Feeling rich is a physical sensation, and it always shows up with a monthly payment attached. That Saturday, the salesman opened the door of an $85,000 SUV and said 5 words. Quote, "A man like you, John." 5 words that eventually cost him $41,000. John's old sedan was paid off, completely reliable and invisible to everyone, including himself. The new payment penciled out to $1,240 a month for 72 very long months. The salesman called it nothing for a man crossing $750,000, and John, glowing, agreed. Now here's the math John skipped while the showroom lights did their expensive little dance. An $85,000 SUV sheds about $21,000 of its value in the first year alone. That is $57 a day evaporating quietly while it sits gleaming in the driveway. Add loan interest, insurance, and premium tires, and year 1 costs about $38,000 all in. 18 months in, John's beautiful upgrade had quietly consumed $41,000 of his net worth. But at this wealth level, the sticker price is never the real price. Remember the multiplier. Every upgrade dollar was a compounding dollar that got pulled off the field forever. That $41,000 left invested for 15 more years was on its way to $113,000. Now zoom out from John's driveway to your own bank statement for a quiet moment. Most people upgrade in tiny, painless steps. $80 here, $200 there, nothing ever feels dramatic. Researchers call it lifestyle creep. Your bank statement just calls it an ordinary Tuesday. Diana's version was $430 a month. The streaming stack, the nicer lease, the meal kits. A typical upgrade wave after a big milestone runs about $1,400 a month every month. That is $1,800 a year that never makes it anywhere near your investment accounts. Invested at 7% instead, that same stream becomes $232,000 in just 10 years. Not one of those purchases will ever feel reckless while you're making it. That's the design. Luxury marketing exists precisely to convert your milestone into their quarterly revenue figure. So here's the John rule, written the week the SUV finally sold at a loss. Any single purchase above $10,000 now waits 30 full days before he signs anything. In the 18 months since, the 30-day rule has quietly killed 11 separate upgrades. Feeling rich is a purchase. Being rich is a balance. Pick which one you're funding. Trap number 2 arrived 3 weeks later, wearing a much better suit than the first. Trap 2 is the handshake trap, and here's what actually happens at a free steak lunch. The advisor praised John's discipline at length, then slid a folder across the white tablecloth. Inside the folder, a glossy plan, a dozen mutual funds, and a management fee of 1%. 1% sounded like a rounding error. On $750,000, it is $7,500 every single year. Not once. Every single year. In up markets, down markets, and sideways markets alike. The Securities and Exchange Commission ran this exact math in an official investor bulletin. A $100,000 portfolio at 4% loses nearly $30,000 to a 1% fee over 20 years. Scale that up to John's balance, and the 20-year fee drag approaches $500,000. Here's the mechanism almost nobody ever sees. The fee itself compounds against you. Every dollar paid in fees is a dollar that stops compounding for you forever after. 7% growth minus a 1% fee is not 14% less money. It is far worse. Compounded over 20 years, that single point costs John's portfolio roughly $497,000 of ending value. The advisor is not evil. He is simply expensive, and paid whether you win or lose. John signed anyway. The folder was heavy, and the steak was, honestly, genuinely excellent. 18 months inside the handshake cost him $11,250 in visible management fees alone. The funds inside the plan carried their own fees too. Another $3,650 gone quietly. Total handshake damage, $15,000. Enough to fund a full year of Carla's entire investing. And speaking of Carla, she pays about $300 a year in fund costs. In total. Same market, same growth engine, same decade of compounding, a 25-fold difference in cost. When Carla actually needs advice, she rents it. One flat fee planner, $2,000 exactly once. A flat fee planner has no reason to sell you anything. That is the entire point. Now, is every percentage advisor a trap? No. Some earn their fee in tax moves alone. But at $750,000, you must know exactly what the handshake costs before you shake it. So ask one question. What will I pay you in dollars per year, all in, everything included? If the answer takes more than one sentence, you already have your real answer. John eventually fired the advisor with a 2-line email and absolutely zero hard feelings. Moving the money into 3 index funds took 20 minutes on a rainy Sunday. That $7,500 a year now stays on the field, compounding for John instead of against him. Trap 3 didn't wear a suit at all. It wore a hoodie, and it texted after midnight. Trap 3 is the genius trap, and here's what nobody tells you about hot tips. Hot tips arrive pre-sold. Your brain buys the story long before you buy the asset. The midnight text read, "This coin is the next big one. Trust me, bro." John scrolled the chart. It only went up. Everyone in the comments was already rich. And a familiar voice whispered the 6 most expensive words in finance. I can afford to gamble now. John moved $150,000, a fifth of everything he owned, into 2 absolutely sure things. $60,000 went into his friend's coin. $90,000 went into one hot tech stock. For 6 glorious weeks, John was a genius. He checked the prices 9 times a day. Then the coin did what most coins eventually do. It fell 80%, and it stayed there. The tech stock missed a single earnings report and gave back half its value in an afternoon. Total damage, $93,000. The coin took $48,000 of it, and the stock took $45,000. Now here's the brutal arithmetic of concentrated losses that nobody teaches in the comments section. Lose 50% of a position, and you need a 100% gain just to break even. Lose 80%, and you need a 400% miracle. Miracles don't keep schedules. Meanwhile, a landmark study at Arizona State University examined every single U.S. stock since 1926. Roughly 4% of all stocks created all of the market's net wealth. 4%. Pick individual names, and the odds say you will hold the other 96%. The index never has that problem. It owns the winning 4% automatically, every single time. Carla naturally owned both of John's winners inside her boring index fund the entire time. She captured their gains without ever knowing their names, their tickers, or their drama. So was John stupid? No, he was wealthy, bored, and flattered, the full trifecta. Boredom at $750,000 is a luxury asset. It is also the entire strategy, honestly. If you absolutely must scratch the itch, give it a sandbox. 5%, never more. A $37,500 sandbox can go to zero without touching a single one of your life goals. John's sandbox rule now lives on a sticky note stuck to the corner of his monitor. Trap 4 needed no salesman at all, because it was already living inside John's own chest. Trap 4 is the panic trap, the one that turns market weather into permanent damage. Here's what actually happens inside your brain during a 14% market dip. That April, markets slid 14% over 6 choppy, headline-screaming weeks in a row. John's screen showed a paper loss of $105,000. His watch showed a heart rate of 94. Now, at $40,000 net worth, a 14% dip is one bad week of news. At $750,000, that very same dip erases 2 full years of your maximum contributions. The dollars are bigger than your salary now, and your amygdala absolutely knows it. Right on cue, his dad called, "Sell it all, son. They're stealing your retirement on television." And the urge to act felt exactly like responsibility. It always does. John sold $200,000 of index funds on the worst single morning of the entire slide. He locked in a $46,000 loss and felt, for exactly one afternoon, tremendous relief. Then the market did what it has done after every single dip in recorded history. It turned. The rebound added back 11% in 5 short weeks. John was sitting in cash. Missing that rebound quietly cost him another $41,000 he never even saw leave. The research firm DALBAR has been measuring this exact human reflex for 4 decades. In 2024, the S&P 500 returned 25.02%, a genuine monster of a year. The average equity fund investor captured just 16.54% of that exact same market. Same funds, same year, same headlines, an 8.48-point gap made entirely of human behavior. DALBAR called it the second largest investor performance gap of the entire past decade. JP Morgan's math is even crueler. Miss the 10 best market days over 30 years and your returns have. And those best days cluster inside the worst weeks, hiding right beside the very bottoms. You cannot time the exit and the re-entry. You would have to be right twice. Carla's April looked very different. She opened her app once, on schedule, on a Tuesday. She saw the dip, said huh, and bought her usual $2,500 at 14% off. Those discounted shares became the single best performing purchase of her entire investing year. The panic trap is not a knowledge problem. It is a wiring problem with a dollar cost. So John automated himself out of the loop. Auto-invest, auto-rebalance, and quarterly logins only. His broker now requires 2 signatures and a waiting period for any 6-figure sale. Trap 5 is the quietest one of all, because it isn't about growing money at all. Trap 5 is the naked trap, and here's what nobody tells you about lawsuits and luck. The moment you are worth $750,000, you become worth suing. Read that sentence twice. A single fender bender with an injury claim can blow straight past your auto policy's limits. Whatever the judgment doesn't collect from your insurance, it collects from your brokerage account. John carried state minimum liability coverage from a policy he had bought at 31. Meaning he was driving an $85,000 SUV protected like a $3,000 college beater. The fix costs less than most streaming bundles. It is called an umbrella policy. $1 million of extra liability protection runs about $300 a year. That's it. John pays $312 annually and calls it the cheapest sleep he has ever purchased. Then there is the paperwork nobody wants to think about on a sunny Tuesday afternoon. John had no will, no healthcare directive, and a 401k beneficiary form from 2009. The name on that beneficiary line? A girlfriend he hadn't spoken to in 15 years. Beneficiary forms override wills in most states. The form wins, every single time. Die without documents, and the state writes your estate plan using its own cold template. Probate can chew through 12 to 18 months and 3 to 7% of an estate. A basic will, directive, and beneficiary cleanup cost John $900 with a local attorney. That's 0.12% of his net worth, protecting 100% of it forever. Maya, meanwhile, taught John something in return about a much quieter kind of nakedness. Her cash sat at one single bank, right up against the $250,000 FDIC insurance ceiling. And John's own bonus that spring had pushed his checking past the insured limit, too. The bank teller flagged it kindly and split the excess into a second insured bank. Protection is not pessimism. It is the toll booth between your money and everyone else's plans. The whole naked trap fix, umbrella, will, beneficiaries, insured cash, took one single afternoon. Total annual cost, about $400. Total assets protected, all $750,000 of them, plus everything next. Not $1 of that spending grows your net worth, and it is still the best trade available. Which brings us finally to the twist. The part of this story nobody ever sees coming. Because here is the twist. While John was busy losing $236,000, the market was rising. Over those exact 18 months, the S&P 500 climbed a little over 9%. The market never once betrayed John. Every dollar he lost, he handed over voluntarily. Add up the ledger with me. $41,000 to the upgrade, $15,000 to the handshake. Then $93,000 to Genius, $46,000 to Panic, and $41,000 of Rebound he never caught. 5 signatures, 0 crashes, $236,000 gone. The most expensive pen John has ever owned. Now run the counterfactual with me because this is where it gets genuinely uncomfortable. If John had simply gone dark for 18 months, his $750, $213 becomes roughly $818,000. Doing literally nothing would have out-earned every clever thing he did by $304,000. Sit with that number a moment. Inaction had a 6-figure salary, and action sent an invoice. Most people believe wealth at this level needs managing, optimizing, tinkering, constant attention. The data says wealth at this level mostly needs to be left completely alone. So here is the sentence to write somewhere you will see it every single day. Below $750,000, money grows when you act. Above $750,000, money grows when you don't. Every trap you just watched is nothing more than a disguise that activity wears. The upgrade felt like a reward. The advisor felt like diligence. The coin felt like courage. And the panic sale felt, more than anything else John ever did, like responsibility. But the only move that actually made him money was the one that felt like negligence. This is why crossing $750,000 quietly breaks people who were brilliant at reaching it. The exact skills that build wealth, hustle, action, optimization, are the skills that destroy it. Carla already knows this, which is why her app stays closed 29 days a month. Diana learned it the cheaper way. She ran her numbers before the milestone, not after. She killed the $430 leak in one single evening and automated the difference into index funds. Maya split the difference. 6 months of expenses stays safe, and the rest finally went to work. And John got boring. Aggressively, deliberately, and very profitably boring. Automation now moves his money on schedule, whether he feels clever, scared, or rich. 18 boring months later, John's ledger read $759,000 and climbing without his help. The market did all of the work. John's only job was staying out of the way. Because boring, it turns out, compounds at exactly 7% a year. So here is the entire playbook for the moment your own net worth hits $750,000. First, freeze everything for 30 days. No purchases, no new strategies, no signatures, nothing. Second, buy the umbrella policy, write the will, and check every single beneficiary line. Third, know your all-in fees in dollars, not percentages, and fire whatever you can't explain. Fourth, cap the play money at 5% and let it be genuinely, joyfully play. Fifth, automate the contributions, automate the rebalancing, and log in just 4 times a year. And then do the hardest thing you will ever do with money. Leave it alone. Do that, and the next $250,000, the one that makes you a millionaire, arrives in about 4 years. It requires no genius, no hustle, and no permission from anyone, only patience. If this video showed you something you didn't know was happening with your money, subscribe to Wealth POV. And hit the notification bell, because we break down the hidden math behind the financial decisions you face every day. John still gets his coffee on Tuesdays. Carla is still 2 desks over, app firmly closed. The number on his phone keeps climbing precisely because he finally stopped trying to help it. You spent decades learning how to build money. Now learn how to leave it alone.